All right, there we go. We're ready to go. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning to those on the West Coast. I'm Jim Boomer, CEO of Boomer Consulting. I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar, Driving CPA Firm Efficiency through Microsoft's Modern Workplace. I'm joined today by Kate Krupe of Netgain. Kate, welcome. So glad to be here with you. And I'll introduce Kate officially here in just a moment. But before we get started, just a few housekeeping items and a few opening comments. So first off, we will have CPE for today's webinar. To receive credit, you'll need to participate in all 3 polling questions and complete the survey that will be sent out later today. Second item is that today's webinar will be recorded and sent out to attendees this afternoon, as well as a copy of the PowerPoint slides. And then final item is we'll be happy to entertain questions from the audience today, but everybody's muted, so please use the Q&A feature of Zoom. Just simply type it in there. We'll keep an eye on things. If it's relevant to the topic at hand, I may jump in and ask Kate to answer. The rest of the questions we'll hold till the end. If we don't get to your question, we'll make sure somebody follows up with you after we're done here today. So just a few thoughts here before we open up. You know, this past 18 months, it's been crazy. Many believe that we've experienced 5 or more years worth of change in this last 18 months. And you know, we've seen changes in all aspects of how we work, and for many, it's because we had to. And a lot of that change prompted by the pandemic was, in my opinion, positive movement forward for many firms, adopting new tools for collaboration and communication that frankly they've been procrastinating on for years. And so as we talked to firms across the country during that time, I'd say Microsoft was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, beneficiaries of this acceleration of change. Hands down, Microsoft Teams is the most commonly mentioned technology that firms adopted due to the pandemic. And Microsoft's continuing to push this capability to work anywhere on any device forward through its modern workplace solution. So today we're going to hear how CPA firms can leverage these tools, as well as some insights into the upcoming product roadmap that's relevant to all of you. So with that, I want to introduce our speaker for today, Kate Krupe. As Director of CPA Solutions at Netgain, Kate's focus is to strengthen the value of Netgain's CPA offerings, identify new solutions to help advance the profession, and guide clients and prospects as they seek to better utilize technology. Most recently, she built up a successful practice developing impactful support teams, cybersecurity programs, and innovative technology solutions to help drive transformation in CPA firms. This practice, as well as Kate's 10 years as the CIO of a Maryland CPA firm, have enabled her to build a broad network of colleagues and providers in the industry, which has given her a deep insight into your needs and the ability to shape solutions that will steer the profession forward into the future. So Kate, so great to have you here today, and I'll turn things over to you.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. I will, that was a wonderful intro. I appreciate it. So I can skip the first minute of my intros there. For a moment, I want to tell you a little bit all about my background as a CIO of a firm. So I did this for 10 years, and there's probably many of you out there that I have met and know well. And I was looking towards the end, so I was there between 2009 and 2019. And towards the end of my tenure there, I was really looking at what was holding my firm back from really that transformation into utilizing all of the tools that we had to make us more efficient. And I took a step back to look at really the entire ecosystem of applications we were using, both to service our clients, so for the entire client life cycle, and then also to run the firm. And I mapped it all out, and I looked at where the integration points were, where we were really moving data from one application to another, and processes were really, really sort of smooth. And there was not much. There was not much. And I was looking for where we could build that up. And right around this time, Microsoft Teams was really gaining some early adoption. And I was thinking about how we could use it as a firm, and how we were going to need to drive adoption, or so I thought before the pandemic, really from every angle of the organization, and how this is one of the best places to use citizen-led change, or put the tools in the hands of the people who are solving the problems every day. I also saw, as an IT leader, how the potential for being able to support all of this was going to be difficult, because we were not able to get out in front of all of these tools as fast as the users were, and some of them were very exciting and compelling. And we don't ever want to stand in the way of innovation in IT. So I was looking at all of this as I left, and I also was starting to learn Lean Six Sigma process improvement methodologies, and I started to think about how all of this could wrap together. So I was looking at the problem of our data is not flowing, our apps are not integrated, and our processes still have a lot of manual steps that create error, as we know, looking at Lean Six Sigma methodology. And I wanted to figure out how we could use, I was also looking at how many of our applications we weren't fully utilizing the feature sets, or where there were duplicate feature sets between different applications, and how we might pull that together. And then what we could solve with this ecosystem of what we're now calling the modern workplace that we were already paying for. All right, so that's where I sort of started looking at all of this. And I'm going to talk today about the modern workplace, Microsoft's definition of the modern workplace. We're going to go through some use cases for that. And then we're going to talk about modern SharePoint. And at each stage, I'll talk to you about use cases of things I know firms have done in these areas that are compelling, or areas that are ripe for attention in our firms. We'll talk a little bit about planners, lists, and tasks and to-dos, which are some of the most common apps we use inside of Teams. And then we'll touch on automation and the Power Platform, and how that really enhances the entire tool set. And then we'll go into a little bit about the Microsoft roadmap moving forward. So the modern workplace. Microsoft would like to claim that they coined this phrase, but that, as you probably know, is not the case. There are a lot of technology providers who are using this term. And really what it means is it's about bringing technology to people in a seamless way and an easy to adopt way that, that really powers innovation. And I'm going to touch on each of these different areas a number of times as we go through this talk, but some of the pieces of that would be collaboration tools, unified communication tools, which is your chat and your voice in some cases, presence, which is very helpful, and mobility, and then automation tools, and then AI and machine learning. So really these are the premises of modern workplace, the technical premises, and the benefits are around really improved collaboration, which most of us have seen to some degree in Teams already, no matter what your adoption maturity level is. Increased efficiency, reducing those operational costs, which I was always interested in, really figuring out where we could do more with what we already had. Innovation and employee satisfaction, that's a huge piece of this. As we know, staffing is just a really big challenge for accountants, and in my world of technology as well, for technologists, and then integrating our technologies. So I'll touch on each of these as we move forward. So Microsoft's modern workplace, as they define it, it starts with Office 365, which we all adopted a long time ago. and moving Exchange to the cloud, which was a huge delight for every IT professional, so that we no longer had to back up and maintain those Exchange servers. So that was fairly easy adoption. Microsoft Voice is part of this platform as well. Now, people have all kinds of voice over IP solutions, but there is more adoption, and Microsoft is driving this piece of the modern workplace quite a bit right now with their R&D. I will say this, all the firms that I've worked with who have moved to Microsoft's voice platform use a good partner. So Microsoft's right now not a great partner for mid-sized firms anyway. And it's pretty cost effective to use those partners as well. And then enterprise mobility and security is a big piece of this. This includes a number of different things, but it includes the Azure Active Directory, the Azure Rights Management, Intune for managing your application deployment, and the Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics, and a few others too. So Microsoft is always adding to this security stack to help secure the mobile devices that we're using and also this modern workplace. There are the apps, which is what I'll be talking a lot about today. So Teams is sort of the head of the tip of the spear. But behind that, we are layering in all sorts of applications. Some of them are Microsoft provided, some of them are third party. And Microsoft's making it easier and easier to use third-party applications, even competing third-party applications, through Teams and in this modern workspace. And then Power BI and really the Power Platform here for automation and data visualization. I'm going to talk a little bit about this SharePoint in a few slides. So SharePoint has a pretty checkered history with IT professionals. It's traditionally been difficult and expensive to set up, but it served as our intranet for many years, and certainly has grown in its functionality and ease of use. But the modern SharePoint, which is in your Microsoft cloud here, is a whole different animal. It's much easier. We're using it in sort of a different model. We used to set up 2, 3 different sites, 4 different sites maybe, or if you're a much larger firm, maybe a few more. Now we don't really worry about how many sites we're setting up. In fact, there's a site behind every team. But the ease of use of SharePoint has really been the key here. So having the maintenance of this kind of communication, this intranet communication pushed to the business units, that was sort of the nirvana that we wanted, because it's difficult for IT to manage all of that. And now that is more than possible. And then Azure. And Azure's behind all of this. All of these apps are in Azure, the ones that are Microsoft anyway. And we're building out infrastructure in Azure. And I'll talk a little later about Azure Virtual Desktop and some of the things that are new in that part of the world. I'll pause for a minute.
All right, I think we have our first CPE question, and Liesel's already on it. So which components of the Microsoft's modern workplace are you using? And you can select all of them that apply. So it's multi-select. We're getting answers coming in. Not surprisingly, we are seeing nearly 100% say Microsoft 365 and Teams. But we have people in all of the buckets here. So it looks like we have about 93% have responded. And just as a reminder, for CPE credit, you will need to answer all 3 of the questions. So I'll give you another 10 seconds to get in here if you need to. So going once, going twice. All right, let's share the results. All right, 99% on 365 and Teams, over half SharePoint, and the Power Platform is about 44%, Azure is 23%, and security is 31%. So lots of firms already leveraging at least one piece of this puzzle.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so how can we take advantage of the modern workplace as CPA firms? So the way I think about this, and part of what I want to leave you with is the generation of thought, is to start thinking about where you can take advantage of these tool sets or automation to run your firms more effectively and efficiently. And I sort of think about it as the front office, the middle office, and the back office. Front office being sales, marketing, all of the front end of your stuff. Middle office being the client services, and then back office being more of your reporting, the accounting systems. I have a use case later I'll talk about, which is security alert management, which is something we in IT need to deal with. So as we're moving through, if we think about this as what kind of processes do we have, or where are our silos in the firm where communication breaks down in these three buckets. And I always see IT as running across the top of all of these because we are in each of the buckets right with you. So as we move along, sort of keep that in mind. Okay, Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint, starting at the beginning. As you know, Teams is a single pane of glass, excuse the marketing language, but it's a pretty good descriptor here. Microsoft is driving to this. This is where they're putting all their eggs. Obviously, it's because of the adoption over the past 18 months. And they are looking to completely replace Outlook. Their vision is in not too much time, we'll come in and open up Teams and we'll do everything through there. We'll be integrating all of our processes through there. We'll be getting all of our files through there. We'll be doing all of our communicating through there. That's the Microsoft vision. OneDrive is, I heard someone say this recently, OneDrive is me, SharePoint is we, but OneDrive is where we're keeping our personal files. It's also where Teams chat is held, for those of you using Teams chat, which is probably everyone. And it also syncs to your local drive, so you can use it like your shared directory, like your home directory we used to use on our shared drives, or your C drive, which we generally don't advise that you use for personal files. And then SharePoint is really what's behind Teams. So every time you create a team, it creates a SharePoint site. Every time you create a channel, it creates a document list. So when you go to files in Teams, all of those files are being stored in SharePoint. I'll move on a second. And in the modern SharePoint, we really can, as I was saying, move the management of this kind of information and technology to the business units, which is really helpful. It's also natively adapted for mobile. So we used to create intranet sites to share this kind of information, to collaborate across the firm. But it was tricky to get it to come up well on a mobile device. Now you're only creating it once, and that's done behind the scenes for you. There's also really strong search capabilities inside of SharePoint. It does matter how you set your file structure, folder structures up to take advantage of those in use of metadata, but it is very powerful and easier to use, so you don't have to know where you are in SharePoint or where information is to be able to do nice searches and get to it. So I will give a use case here. When I was with the firm, every year we would have a tax season kickoff in mid-January, and we would go over all of the changes to processes and technology that we'd put in place in the previous year. And we would publish all of that in our intranet site. Now there are firms who are driving all of this through Teams. So now you could have a tax season 2022 team backed by SharePoint, where you keep all of the new all of the new processes around your taxes, tax process flow, all of your new tips and tricks, new software that you've adopted, right in one place so everybody can get it. You can also use the feedback features or survey features in Teams so that throughout the tax season, you can be collecting that feedback of what's working, what's not working, and then be able to more quickly address that instead of waiting for an end of season survey that goes out. All right, I'm a big fan of the new SharePoint. So here's some Teams use cases. A lot of firms started with the functional departments. And if you are just getting started with this, or you have adopted Teams, but you don't have a lot of governance around it, this is a good place to start. Whether it's in a beta sense where you're asking your different groups to try to figure out what apps you need, what channels you're using, and share best practices. Or if you're just, I forget what I was going to say about that. I'll move on to the next one. Software teams. So with your software teams, this is a couple of firms are doing this that I was talking with, and I thought it was really interesting. Either creating a software team for a piece of software or for all of that function software. So it could be a CCH access team, or it could be a tax software team. And then in your team, your channels could be each piece of software. This is very powerful. You know, managing technology, managing the software throughout the organization, all of our knowledge about best practices or just policies and procedures around using this software is scattered amongst the folks who are incoming and just got trained and now have all that sort of top of mind, folks who have been there a long time and have deeper knowledge set, and your IT team who know the break fix aspects and maybe know some other pieces that they can add. And often, especially our younger staff come in and don't know who to go to get answers to their questions. We used to have a spreadsheet that was who knows what about what, where we tried to really give people resources where they could go. And here we could just do it right in the team. So if you have a tax software team, you know, all of your folks can go there and check out they can report problems they're having. They can see tips and tricks. You can have your micro training videos in there for them, which I hugely advocate, because getting people the information when they need it and exactly the information that they need is part of what drives efficiency in this workplace. All right, project management. So we run all kinds of projects in our firms outside of client management to try and make our firms run more efficiently. If you're running these projects, collaborating cross-functionally can be a challenge. Teams is a great use case for this. You can bring in all kinds of applications here to help with it. Chat and communicate, of course. You can bring OneNote in to keep track of all of your meetings and your decisions and your action items. There's a plethora of different applications to be used. One that I really like is called We Decide. It allows you to make peer level decisions about anything that you're doing. So if there is, you know, with a Lean Six Sigma group, when you're running one of those, you often need to get corroboration of the team. Everyone has to sort of agree, or at least most people have to agree in order to move something forward. And in between your meetings, that could be tough to do. So We Decide sets up a small form. It requires that everyone on the team either approve or reject whatever this decision is going to be, and then it archives it so that you can see the history of decisions that are made. So you can see how that builds efficiency into the Lean Six process, so that you're not either doing this through email or waiting for your next meeting, but you're able to make decisions much faster. You start thinking about things like that, and the use cases could go anywhere, right? So breaking down silos and making it more efficient and more collaborative is the focus. And then a Teams team. So I know it sounds a little odd. I think most people have these, but all of the applications that are available and the ways that we use them is changing so rapidly, and people come up in the firm from every walk in the firm come up with great ideas. So having a place where you can talk about what your governance rules are, what your what your training that you're offering is, what's new, and really incentivizing people to come up with new use cases and share them with each other. Again, this all helps in breaking down those silos and increasing efficiency and collaboration. I'm going to pause. Jim, have you seen any Teams use cases that you want to throw into?
Most definitely. I mean, everything you've highlighted here, we've seen firms doing. And as I said in the open, Teams was the most adopted technology during the pandemic. But a couple that I've heard about that weren't covered here is, firms that are working with Teams in an outsourcing capacity. So they're offshoring some of the work, and you have the huge time zone differences, and you mentioned silos, and firms have seen a benefit from creating a Teams channel or team for corresponding with that group in, say, India or wherever your resources are. And that has streamlined communication. It's taken it out of the silo of an individual's inbox, not made it such an opportunity for bottleneck. So that's one. And then from our own personal experience, we actually started leveraging Teams for our circle groups. So our peer group communities in between the actual meetings, this is a place people can go. And we made that shift because we saw the majority of those firms were all moving there quickly. So why not go where everyone is and make it a tool that everybody's already either very used to or is becoming very used to pretty quick. So certainly what we see supports everything you just went over. We do have, I think we have a CPE question next, but I also had a question come in that is kind of related. So I'm going to do them in tandem here. I'm going to ask you the question, and then Lisa, after that, if you want to pop the CPE question up, then people can answer while Kate's answering this question. So Andy asks, as an accounting firm, one of the recurring themes, at least, is a concern over the security of info placed with Microsoft. For example, saving a file with client info in OneDrive. Can you speak to the security of such services and whether the concern from both IT and exec level are warranted?
Sure. So Microsoft, I can say, I work very closely with Microsoft on behalf of Netgain, and we talk about this all the time. Microsoft spends a lot of R&D on their security to make sure that that they are securing everything properly, and a lot of investment in their tools. That being said, security is really, it's a shared responsibility between the firm and Microsoft and any other vendor that's holding your data. So there is a certain amount of knowledge necessary. I would say if you're a firm with no IT group and you're putting everything into the Microsoft cloud, that you probably need another partner to help make sure things are secured, because you have data that flows back and forth in ways that you know and probably ways that you don't know. So being able to nail that down with a partner to help you with security if you don't have IT. If you have IT, then you're probably looking at that already using tools. So the answer isn't simple, but Microsoft does have very good security, but it is a shared responsibility. So understanding your data and where it lives at any given point in time, both from a security standpoint and also from a business continuity standpoint. You know, what information you need to run your business and what you can do if you lose access to that for any point in time. So having a plan for that, all of that still very much matters. It's never a set it and forget it.
Yeah, and I pile on there. I mean, I've been saying for years that when you think about these these large cloud providers, and which Microsoft is, been around a long track record. They're investing way more than any CPA firm, even our largest CPA firms, could invest in security. And unfortunately, we live in an environment where there's no 100% guarantee that we're not going to be a victim. But from my perspective, I'm going to trust their ability to do the security rather than trying to do it internally, where that's not our core business. And there's a lot more likelihood that people would be able to get in to a CPA firm than Microsoft. Now, you might be saying, well, Microsoft has been hacked, and you see it in the news. Well, that's because they are a big group, so there's multiples impacted. But with you're probably not going to make the headline, so you don't hear about it as much. But that stuff still happening, is direct attacks on firms and them having security breaches as well. So and the last thing I'll say is, you can't invest all your eggs in the building Fort Knox basket, because you also have to balance that out with your, as Kate said, your business continuity, but your response, like when it happens, or what, hopefully if, rather than when, you are prepared to respond appropriately. So you have to balance that piece of it out, but it's no small challenge. It looks like on the CPE question, we have guidelines on how SharePoint Teams is used. It looks like 25% have guidelines, internal and external. 31% have only internal. No one has just external, and about 44% have no guidelines. So, which somewhat reminds me of the beginning of SharePoint. It was like, the greatest thing about SharePoint is you can do almost anything. The worst part about SharePoint was you can do almost anything, and the chance of it getting wild west. So I think we have some more questions, but I think we need to move on just in the interest of time. We'll see what kind of time we have left at the end. So I'll pass it back to you, Kate.
Thanks, Jim. All right, so a couple of apps to plug into Teams if you haven't already started looking at them. Microsoft Planner. This is a great app for small team and small project management. If you're managing large projects in a large firm, or just complex projects, Microsoft Project is still an excellent tool, and there's lots of other tools for that as well. But for the day-to-day stuff, Microsoft Planner's a pretty good application. You plug it right into Teams. It shows you, again, obviously I'm a Lean Six Sigma fan. It shows you the Kanban board, which should be familiar if you've done that kind of process improvement work, and calendar view, and then it's got a nice chart view. So there's a lot of things you could do with this. You could manage your audit engagement tasks here, your tax planning tasks, or your admin tasks. I remember every tax season there was the quick hurry up and get all of the supplies we need for all of the offices we have, because we hadn't quite gotten digital delivery of our returns for 100% of our clients down yet. And so managing that across the offices was very helpful. So there's a lot of use cases here, again, for things that don't get a lot of attention, but really take cycles from your folks. And it gives them a place to collaborate on it as well, where they can see what everyone else is doing. Microsoft Lists. So Microsoft Lists really is a duplication of SharePoint lists. The difference is it's more user-friendly and it looks more like the competition. So money.com is one of the competing applications, and Microsoft really created this so that they could take advantage of having something in their suite that wasn't as difficult to work with as lists. That being said, the SharePoint lists are not really all that difficult. You can see my IT bias here in my use cases: laptop, desktop inventory, software inventory, but also managing those. Like, I was thinking about managing the client's mailings, like the 7216 mailings. if that's still something that we need to do so that we don't cross-market to tax-only clients. And then tasks by planner and to do. This is really a place where you can bring all your tasks together. So if you are leveraging these different applications like Planner inside of Teams for your different teams, you have tasks from that. This also pulls in your Outlook tasks. I know a lot of accountants who use that Outlook task feature heavily. So to bring those together, and you can use Power Automate to bring in your OneNote tasks. So if you're like me and you keep all your tasks in OneNote, it would bring that all into one place. Now I know there's never there's something about going from brain to hand in writing to make our lists out, and I still do that to some degree too. But I'll tell you a nice use case. You're leaving the office. The last thing you have to do is call your client. You call them in the car. You want to check it off your list. You bring it up on your mobile. You go to your team. You go to your planner. You hit the radio button. Now it's done. And my Franklin Covey system couldn't do that. I'd have to wait till I got home and check that off the list. So there are some really great use cases for this to manage your personal tasks. So with that, client engagement use cases, I think this is interesting. I've talked to a bunch of firms, and some are using Teams for client engagements and some are not. And then there's the level of maturity around this. So if you're getting started, if you're thinking about this, then think about just starting with your internal team and use some of the tools if you haven't done so yet. Use Planner for assigning tasks. Use lists for PBC tracking for an engagement. Bring in OneNote for your meeting notes and your action items, and see how that goes, and start to build that use case. If you've done that and you're ready to move forward, think about creating a Teams template. Now you need to be a Teams administrator to do this, so you might have to work with your IT department if you aren't your IT department. But you can set it up with exactly the apps that you want and the channels that you want. And then when your staff go in to create a team, those who are allowed to create teams, they can pick it right from that templates list. And then you have a lot of consistency from across all of your client engagements. And then the advanced use case here is really starting to tie it into our other systems. So this is where I kind of started the conversation, and the things that really I'm deeply interested in is how do we connect all of this? So you can pull information into your engagement from your practice management, from your document management systems, and you can provide your client deliverables through Teams too. That does require some permissioning and security. You want to make sure you set that up properly so that you're protecting yourself and your client's data. But you can do all of this through Teams, and then start to think about, in the beginning of this, we were talking about sort of operational costs that are duplicated. All of the applications that we use to do these things, some are industry specific, some are not. So really starting to think about, how can we pull it together and use what we're already paying for to do some of the things that we're reaching, we're paying multiple vendors for. The Microsoft Power Platform. So the Power Platform consists of Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate, and then Power Virtual Agents. I would start by talking about Power Automate. And if I started working in the platform, that's where I would start. That's really all about automating with low code / no code your processes. So if you are, again, thinking about that front office, middle office, back office, and you're thinking about the processes in one of those buckets, depending on who you are in the firm, or if you are, sort of firm administrator operations, and you're looking across all of them, where are the processes where you have the most manual labor, things where you're repeating, you're entering information into duplicate systems or multiple systems, that would give you the biggest bang for your buck? Because as you start down this journey, if you're not well in, although the earlier survey tells me that at least almost half of you have been playing around or fully using some of these tools, think about where you can drive efficiency and also generate some excitement about this. So that's where I would start. And I think that that requires some understanding about where your data lives, how it's organized. And if you're going to start working with or continue working with Power BI, you also have to have some understanding of how to normalize data. So we all know garbage in, garbage out, and the same thing applies here. There's no magic button. But if you understand your data, or you can learn to understand your data, and you can bring that into Power BI, then you can make the processes of creating dashboards and reporting much, much easier. And then I'm sort of moving backwards. The Power Apps are really helpful if you want to create an app that's kind of separate. So Power Automate you can use without Power Apps, or you can wrap them together. But if you have a use case to create an app, then you use the Power App, which is a low-code solution. And the language is much like using Excel functions. So it's familiar to accountants. So if you have someone who's interested, it's not a big leap to learn. Then you can create that with Power Apps, and that can all live there. And obviously all of this is very, doesn't matter what device you're on, and works with your mobile devices. A couple of quick use cases, although I'm sure that we on this call could come up with a whole bunch of others. A marketing use case, someone tweets your firm. You create a flow in Power Automate that sends them a reply of appreciation. That flow then adds them to a spreadsheet that's sent to your marketing manager, who can approve it. And then it's added to the contact in whatever your CRM is, Salesforce, HubSpot, for future marketing opportunities. So now you've automated something that normally would have taken, either would have gone unnoticed or would have taken a lot of manual effort, or some manual effort to do. All right, client onboarding. Now this one for me is near and dear to my heart, because I built a system with on-prem SharePoint and a product called Nintex that pretty much did the same thing as Power Automate in terms of allowing you to, without being a developer, create workflow and approval processes and notifications. And that's what Power Automate can do for you. So you're bringing on a client. We all know there's many questions that have to be answered before we can issue that client number to start billing against. So you can collect that information here using forms. Use Power Automate to manage it through the workflow process. You can use approvals, which is an app, to get the approval from whoever needs to look at the answers of those 20-some questions about whether this is going to be a good client or not. And then you can route that to your practice management admin, who can add it to your practice management system. And if you're really fancy, you can then you can create it such that it goes into the system, especially a SQL-based system, creates that itself instead of having having someone do it manually. I didn't get that far. That's where I had stopped. That was my gap. And then you can use Power BI and the dashboarding, so firm management can easily see the new clients coming in. Any thoughts on that, Jim? Do you have any other use cases that you know of that have been compelling?
Well, it was Amanda Wilkie recently presented at the technology circles in our Circle 4, so our largest firms. She did one on RPA use cases, so not just Power Automate, but all the tools, and she had collected them from different firms of what we've been hearing. And certainly we've heard these, but there was a whole list of them from K1 creation and distribution and automating that whole tedious process to automating returns that are going to get extended, just do it automatically. So things that may seem like they're quick one-offs, but when you do them on scale, it adds up that there's a whole lot of time savings and probably morale savings, because nobody likes doing those things most of the time. But yeah, Amanda collected, I think, 9 or 10 which was so helpful. And you sharing these kind of use cases is so helpful for people, because what I run into when we talk about RPA and automating is, well, I don't know how I would use it. And that is the biggest struggle, is to identify the use cases. And once they get past that, the actual technology and implementation, while not, turn it on simple, but it's a lot easier than figuring out how you're going to apply it. So yeah, we've seen RPA go just in the last, I would say in the last 18, 24 months, from just talking about, are you thinking about this, to now we've got people that are off and running, doing things and looking for more ways. The other thing that I think is exciting and compelling to a lot of people out there, I'm sure, is this whole idea of bringing the client experience together. Because yeah, as you said, you get redundant systems, different service lines, different units will use a different client portal, but that client uses different services. So we're sending them to 3, 4 and it's so confusing. So I think a lot of firms are struggling with this. How do I make it easy to do business with us, and create a more streamlined workflow in the client experience?
That's a good point. I would say also, I think the RPA piece is interesting, whatever tool you use but Microsoft has its tool. There's an RPA piece of Power Automate, and it allows you to create this automation like we create macros in Excel. So I thought that was really interesting, because as you know, in the accounting world, we all know Excel, and most of us have created macros, and it's really just a recording of your point and clicking. Only in Excel, you're doing it inside of one application, and here you can go across applications. It could be an on-prem application like PFX, or it could be a SaaS application, or it could be both. Yep. So it's really just recording your clicks, and that's pretty exciting, because that is well, not easy like you say, but nothing is a click of a button. I don't want to misrepresent, but it's a way, without working on a large development project, to get that integration or flow between our systems, the data flow between our systems that we've been looking for.
Yep. And I'll say it is a whole lot easier than it used to be with these tools, and it's a whole lot less low code, no code. So I think we have another CPE question coming up.
Yep.
So where do you see the most value for automation in your firm? The front office, middle office, or back office? And just as a reminder, we need you to answer all three for CPE purposes. And you're only giving them a single choice. So I'm sure there's several people out there saying, well,
all of them.
I see a lot of value in all of them.
Good point.
So we will give it another 10 or 15 seconds, and then we'll close it off. It looks like we're at about 86%. For so any of you out there that are hoping to get CPE credit and haven't answered, go ahead and get your answer in the next 10 seconds, and we'll close it out at a minute. All right, going once, going twice. All right, let's close it out and share. So it looks like back office won at 45%, followed by middle and then front office. But got answers all across the board there.
Across the board. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little about things that are coming from Microsoft now. Microsoft Viva. So some of you may know, many of you may know about this. It's a fairly new offering. It's coming out in 4 components. There's insights, topics, learning, and connections. And it's really Microsoft, what they're saying about this is they're trying to meet us where we are in trying to manage a remote workforce and trying to create or improve our culture, our remote work culture or digital work culture. So let me roll through these a little bit. So connections is really about employee engagement. You can run town hall meetings here. It's backed by SharePoint and Yammer. So it's sort of, to me, like the intranet, where you have your policies, obviously a lot of HR things here. It's organized by roles. So it's using group permissions. So in some ways, like, it's backed by SharePoint, and that's what I see is SharePoint's just falling to the back of many of these different things, and they're layering on applications that make it easier to use. Viva Insights is about taking care of the employee. So it is about making suggestions. It's a little bit of AI. It's looking at how you manage your day in your calendar. It can make those suggestions that if you have back-to-back 60-minute meetings, moving to a 45-minute meeting and giving yourself some space is a good idea. So it also allows managers to look at those types of insights across their team, so they have some sense of how their team is working. So that's what the insights piece is. Topics is more like a wiki for the firm. Again, it's sort of a different piece of an intranet, or a place where we have all of our firm information, and it is powered by AI. So this is kind of interesting, and I'm wondering how this is going to play out as we start using it. But it automatically surfaces these topic cards, and it tells you, it's looking at what you're doing in the Microsoft's little big brother, looking at what you're doing in this ecosystem here, and it's giving you information about who else is working on these clients. Here's a video around a topic that you're working on. Now, so I think it's, it could be documents, it could be videos, it could be people, that it's sort of giving you information, kind of like when you Google something that you're interested in buying, and all of a sudden everything starts popping, ads start popping up, sort of like that. But also it can be curated, which is obviously what we would be doing, is curating some of this so that we drive that content to the people where we want it. And then Viva Learning. So that's a training piece, that's a learning piece. And it is, there's a little bit of an AI piece there too, where it's going to recommend training for you. And it connects with a lot of third-party content, also allowing you to create your own content. So right now, those are the 4 modules of Viva. And again, I'll be really interested to see how we adopt them over time. So some use cases around that kind of bring these things together between the Power Platform and Viva would be the employee onboarding. So Viva can connect people and share firm groups and information. And all of this is served up through Teams, by the way. So you can use your Teams and SharePoint tools there for onboarding checklists and Power Automate and forms for information flow between departments. I remember my HR director wanted to only fill out one form about a new employee, but we weren't all privy to the information that was in that form. So being able to get the right information to the right people timely is much easier to do. And then another one is I think I mentioned this earlier, security alert management. As our role in securing our firm's data and our clients' data has grown exponentially, as the threat landscape has grown exponentially, most of us have come up with ways of bringing in third-party partners or vendors or software that will help us monitor and keep our data safe. However, it creates a lot of action items for us as well. So the more we're monitoring, doing pen testing, and building this list of action items, we have to act on them. And when our next audit comes, we're going to have to prove that we acted on them. So building out something inside of Teams where you're using Planner to organize, and if you're an IT manager, to delegate tasks, and then to track that, you can bring in Smartsheet if you need a more sort of robust feature set there. You can use Power BI for data visualization to show where you are, creating your own security score. So it's a use case that I think is near and dear to my heart, and I think we really need these types of tools to be able to wrangle all the new responsibilities that we have, or the growing set of responsibilities. Azure Virtual Desktop. So this is not really new. Azure Virtual Desktop has been around for about a year. It was Windows Virtual Desktop until a couple of months ago, and it really replaces RDS. So from an architecture standpoint, and now I'm just speaking to my technology friends in the crowd, everybody else can take a nap for a minute if they want. This really replaces the RDS model, and what it's doing primarily, there is a number of different features that add a lot of value to what we had in RDS world. But really, one of the biggest ones is eliminating the need for separate gateways and session brokers. And it pushes all of that into the WVD or AVD control pane. So that simplifies our architecture and it's less to maintain. So that's really a huge piece of what AVD is doing for us. They did also optimize Teams performance, which hit right on time for anybody who's working in a hosted desktop. A lot of folks have to use Teams outside of hosted desktops because of the bandwidth that it sucks down. And so now it just pushes that to the local device, but allows you to run it through the hosted desktop. And now you can file sharing is a little easier and things like that. So that was very helpful. And then Microsoft bought FS Logix, which has been around for a while. And you can use FS Logix outside of AVD, but it is baked into AVD. And what it helps us, it is, to profile management, what moving Exchange to Office 365 was. Profile management is always a struggle and can really, negatively impact our end users. So it is especially I can speak for our clients. It's really, really helped them. And then just 3 days ago, Windows 365 Cloud PC hit the market. So this is built on AVD, and it's a streaming Windows PC experience. So it is a PC in a cloud. It's going to hold your operating system and your applications and your content and your settings all in a virtual desktop. So it is Microsoft, as you can see, is taking one more piece of the virtualization that you don't have to worry about anymore. This isn't really new technology. The gaming industry drives the hardware industry. We don't need near the drive or capacity that the gamers need, but that's what the hardware industry is building to. So this, along with Windows 11, which is coming, is going to be interesting for the hardware industry. This is going to make an impact. And with Windows 11, one of the negative impacts is we won't be able to use the legacy hardware as long as we had, because some of the chipsets are going to be impacted. So that'll make us have to turn over our hardware faster. Well, that'll be good for the hardware industry. Bad for us who want our legacy systems a little bit longer for the investment. But those are just a couple of things that are coming down the pike. Or here, but it'll be interesting to see what the impact is. So with just 3 minutes or so left, I'll say what like adoption of any kind of technology, it's important to think about where you can get your quick wins and how to communicate that across your firm. So if you have great successes in Teams, share it with the rest of your firm in a way that they can take advantage of it. Or if you have an opportunity to really drive the interest in this kind of innovation, think of ways that you can incentivize people and give them the tool sets that they need to start building and working in this area. Because it's always the people doing the work that understand the problems and usually have some of the solution worked out that is going to be the best impact, have the best impact on optimizing your processes and becoming more efficient. So I will leave you with that.
All right, thank you, Kate. Well, we have just 1 minute yet left, and we have some questions in here. I do want to, before people drop off, say thank you to Netgain for sponsoring today's webinar, and thank you, Kate, for a great presentation and an overview of the modern workplace. And also thank you to everyone out there for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you on a future Boomer Consulting webinar. So for those of you that still have questions, pop them in here. And like I said at the beginning, we'll make sure somebody follows up with you afterwards directly to answer your questions. And sorry we didn't get to those, but I do want to respect everyone's time. So again, thank you. Great job, Kate. And thank you again to Netgain. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you, everyone.